Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. Before we get started, I have a quick announcement. Based on your feedback, we're trying a new format and doing more short form shows centered around 3 specific topics. 1. Cannabis news, where we discuss stories related to the business of cannabis. Self-care, where we engage on topics related to your health and well-being. And last, interviews and reviews, where we talk to interesting people and review products. The shows will be shared as separate episodes, so you can choose the topic that interests you the most. I hope you enjoy the new format. And as always, thanks for taking a few minutes of your day to spend with us here at The Real Green Show. As a reminder, you can listen to the show in podcast form, or even better, watch the show on the Jamrock Organics YouTube channel. In today's show, we'll take a look back at the top 5 things that happened in cannabis last year and stick around till the end of the show for Google's top searches of 2020. So it's been about 3 months since we did our last show, and honestly, a lot has changed. I think every industry and every human being on the planet has been changed in some way by COVID-19. But I think through it all, there is a silver lining. It forced us as human beings to slow down, and it forced companies, Jamrock included, to do the same. Most of us have reassessed priorities, resources, operations, opportunities, our supply chain, and made the adjustments necessary to be even stronger in 2021. I'm excited to say that Jamrock will have some incredible things coming this year, like an awesome new line of products in both the CBD and cannabis genres. Also, some exciting new technology that will revolutionize the way cannabis products are distributed, purchased, dispensed, and consumed. Great new partnerships that will allow Jamrock to expand and bring our brand to more states in the US. Much more to come on that in future episodes, so be sure to follow and subscribe to stay in the loop. Now, I realize that this year has been difficult for us all. And the changing of the calendar to 2021 is merely symbolic in nature. But we enter the new year tougher and more resilient as a people. We made it through what was one of the most challenging years of our generation. But now it's time to look forward. Look forward to a vaccine that promises a cure and gives us all hope. Believe it or not, I think that history will look back at 2020 as a turning point in our lives, a turning point that actually made us better. I'm your host, Garth Case, and this is The Real Green Show. Now on to the 5 most important things to impact the cannabis industry in 2020. Starting with number 5, world leaders finally warming up to cannabis. After years of speculation, the United Nations voted to reschedule cannabis from the list of the world's most dangerous drugs. This represented the most significant change to their policies in 60 years. The vote was clearly influenced by medical cannabis legalization in places like Lebanon, Ghana, Rwanda, and Malawi. These countries highlight the pace of international acceptance for cannabis across the world. So what's my takeaway for the UN making this move? Well, cannabis has always been a symbol of peace, not war. So I think cannabis fits well with the UN's purpose to keep the world peaceful. Number 4, cannabis as essential. Across North America's legal markets, the COVID-19 pandemic not only fueled record-shattering demand for cannabis, retail sales rose by 35%. This led to cannabis businesses being declared essential in virtually every legal market. With most of the brick-and-mortar stores closed, cannabis businesses were among the few continuing to operate. So what's our takeaway here? The essential designation highlights the sharp contrast between the importance that states put on the industry and the need to change the federal government's punitive cannabis laws. Over 65% of the country is okay with cannabis legalization. It's time for our elected officials to start getting with the program and listening to the will of the people. Number 3, record mergers and acquisitions. Seeing Cresco Labs acquire Origin House in a deal that was reportedly valued at over $800 million was amazing. Curaleaf acquiring Grassroots Cannabis for $700 million, making Curaleaf the largest cannabis company in the industry, was incredible. So our takeaway here is that mergers and acquisitions across the industry continue to demonstrate the legitimacy and the overall potential of the cannabis industry's future. Cannabis is growing up and is now old enough to party. Number 2, mainstream social acceptance. The latest Pew Research results found that 67% of Americans support legalizing cannabis. Amid all the chaos of 2020, much of America has reshaped how it thinks about cannabis, which is clearly demonstrated by voters in Arizona, Montana, and New Jersey voting to approve adult cannabis use. South Dakota voters approved 2 measures simultaneously, legalizing cannabis for both medical and adult use. And surprising to most, Mississippi voters passed a medical cannabis initiative. The takeaway here is that outside of increasing consumer access to cannabis, the newly legal markets are estimated to generate $1.2 billion in revenue by 2022 and help the overall US market to surpass $38 billion by 2025. That's a lot of tax revenue. And cash-strapped states are chomping at the bit to get a piece. And last but not least, number 1, we are a step closer to possible federal legalization of cannabis. The 2020 elections laid the foundation for potential historic U.S. cannabis policy reform because Democratic President Joe Biden was elected, and the Democrats managed somehow to gain control of both the House and Senate. Given the fact that Biden supported descheduling cannabis during his campaign, it's probably a good indication of change coming in the way of legislation. Of the 6 ballot initiatives passed in 2020, the approval for adult use measures in New Jersey and South Dakota could prove most consequential, with New Jersey kicking off a legalization race on the East Coast, with New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Virginia all committing to follow suit. South Dakota became the most historically conservative state to approve an adult use measure and the first state ever to do so without first approving medical use. So what's the takeaway? All of these developments are noteworthy, but taken together, they affirm the broad momentum building toward full legalization and sweeping changes to cannabis policies globally. And while the outcome of developments may take time to fully materialize, 2020 will be remembered as a year that favorably changed the cannabis industry's trajectory. That's our top 5 things to happen in the cannabis industry for 2020. But I do have one more important industry development that flew beneath the radar for most of us. Drum roll, please. Cannabis edibles has officially surpassed smokable products as a consumer favorite for consuming cannabis. Throughout modern history, the joint had been the uncontested, dominant champion of cannabis consumption. But as noted in New Frontier's data survey, this marked the first time among total cannabis users that edibles were preferred over classic flower joints. This signals broader product adoption by those that don't favor smoking. And that's our Cannabis Year in Review. Join us next week when we take a look at more cannabis news, and I'll make some predictions for the industry in 2021. Now, to close the show, I thought we would end with Google's top searches of 2020. Spoiler alert, it was dominated by COVID-19, but there were so many other lessons and noteworthy tragedies, like the loss of civil rights hero John Lewis and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We lost a legend in sports and entertainment, Kobe Bryant and Alex Trebek. We even lost a king, Chadwick Boseman. We saw a devastating explosion in Lebanon, climate change continuing to devastate the world with a record number of wildfires burning through Australia and California. We learned that it was possible to use technology to productively work from home. We saw parents having to become teachers, or more importantly, learn to appreciate how difficult it is to be a teacher. We saw unbelievable triumphs, like commercial travel to space, pharmaceuticals putting aside competition and sharing data to create a COVID vaccine in record time, America electing its first female vice president, Kamala Harris. 2020 was the year that racial injustice and systemic racism got outed across the world, and America in particular truly started to pay attention in part because of the murder of George Floyd, and mostly because of the protests fueled by our young people and the Black Lives Matter movement. Ben Okri, a Nigerian poet and novelist, said, "The most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering." So that was 2020. Time will tell whether the suffering was worth it. Remember to follow and subscribe to stay in the loop, and we welcome your comments and feedback about the show. Tweet us at Jamrock Organics. Check out the episode notes in the description for lots more information about Jamrock and The Real Green Show. To close, let's take a look at Ghoul's year in search. Stay healthy, and I wish you the best for 2021. Thank you.
The most human trait is to want to know why. And in a year that tested everyone around the world, why was searched more than ever.
The spread of the coronavirus has passed a significant milestone.
And while we didn't find all the answers, we kept asking. Some questions inspired joy, others excitement.
Life in the bubble. Woo!
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know what an improper fraction is.
Teacher should make $1 billion.
We found toilet tissue, y'all.
Oh my God.
Put it on there and start it up for me.
What are y'all doing? It's still March. How many days in March?
Some questions made us cry.
You know, we've been through our ups and been through our downs. I think the most important part is that we all stay together throughout. I love you guys.
Some made us worry about this spinning rock we call home.
Fires were detected in the Amazon rainforest.
Why were so many lives lost?
Almost 1.5 million people have now died of COVID-19 worldwide.
Why are we still asking the same questions?
George Floyd repeatedly told the officers that he could not breathe.
So why do we still have strength to continue?
I believe in your power. I believe in our power.
Chants of Black Lives Matter echoed from thousands of protesters in cities around the world.
Why are we not defeated?
We have made too much progress, and we are not going back. We are going forward.
Planes are starting to arrive in Beirut, full of international aid.
Firefighters from around the world arriving in California. There are over 100 coronavirus vaccines in development worldwide.
This is one of those times when people look out for one another and have each other's backs.
We kept going for those who showed us the way.
Think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters.
Remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Press on with pride and press on with purpose.
Why is it that this year showed us its worst, and we still found ways to triumph?
An incredible feat for Maya Gaviera.
Naomi Osaka, U.S. Open Championship.
Can't let Corona stop you. Can't let quarantine stop you.
So until we get to every answer,
We're gonna get it together somehow.
we're still searching.